And welcome to another Monday evening, night, afternoon. What is it? It's 4 o'clock.
It's something. It's sunny outside. I'll say afternoon.
Yeah. So things are a little bit different now. Things are constantly changing. If you listened last week, you heard what happened. If you didn't, go back and listen, because that way we can I get more listeners, more hits, if you will. So yeah, things are changing. A lot of things are going to be different, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm excited. We don't know what's going to happen further down the road, but things are going to be different. That's for darn sure.
Right.
Not to bring you into this, Chris, but you did come on, and fill in at the end of the show last week. But I don't want arguing anymore. I don't want.
God damn it! Why not?
I just can't do it. I mean, I don't want to air dirty laundry on this show, but that's how I kind of do things. I'm as open and honest as you could possibly be.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want anxiety when I get up to do a show that, quite frankly, I'm getting nothing for at this point.
Right.
I don't want anger on the show. I don't want people mad listening to the show. I don't mind confrontation. Sure. I don't mind different opinions. But I do mind the kind of crap, quite frankly, that's been going on this show.
Well, and like you just said, man, you cannot. Look, it's for fun. It's for fun, and you cannot. If you're doing a show and your stomach hurts going into it, then you can't keep going the way you're going.
I want new sponsors for this show. I want the sponsors that I have for the show to be happy with the way that it's going.
Right.
And I want the fans of the show to enjoy the way that the show is going. Right. And quite frankly, if I don't enjoy the way that the show is going, then I don't know how anybody else can either.
Right.
And I frankly apologize. I apologize to everybody listening, because I'm just as guilty of getting emotions and anger involved in a show that is supposed to be a good time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to be like that. I don't want it to be like that anymore. And I'm going to make sure that is not the case going forward.
Sure.
And so if the show is different, that's the way it's going to be.
and according to you, it is different.
Yes. And so that's just the reality of the situation at this point.
Right. Absolutely.
And so I'm looking forward to the future and not the past, obviously.
Right on.
So a lot of good things are happening. I talked to, first of all, Chuck Zukowski is going to be joining us shortly, actor and UFO expert.
A UFOlogist, as they call him.
Yeah, UFOnut.com is his website.
Right. That'll be fun. And Seth froze. Well, that's different. All right, Seth, where you be, pal? All right. Well, that's of course I get to sit in as the replacement and immediately deal with this, but that's all right. We can do that. We can definitely do what we got to do. So let me find the little buttons here. This is one of the advantages I have, is that I know where all the buttons are. So, all right, let's just take a quick break. Get everything regrouped. We'll get started. We'll talk some UFOs, and we'll talk some other stuff.
I think
and maybe, there he is.
It's the ghost of a past here that is taking over.
I was like, damn it, 2 minutes in and we're frozen. I got a wing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what the hell happened, but connection was interrupted. But again, Chuck Zukowski, actor, UFOlogist, UFOnut.com, going to be joining us shortly.
Sure.
God willing. And then on Wednesday, Charles Guile, friend of the show, friend of the Trib Show, will be joining us.
Okay.
He suffered a heart issue, had a quintuple bypass.
Oh boy!
And so he's going to come on.
Now,
what
does that mean? Does that all 4 valves had to be like cleaned out? Is that what that means?
Quintuple's 5.
Well, what is the 5th one?
So I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know anything.
We'll see what that's all about. So he's going to be joining us, and we'll see what happens there.
Okay, very cool.
Another big announcement that we are going to be talking about going forward here is that I talked to Billy Morris today.
Sure. Wow, that is a big announcement.
That is a big announcement because I think he's been dodging me for quite some time. No, I think that guy is more busy than
all of us put together.
Yeah, he's a busy dude.
He is.
So he and I talked this morning, and I think we're going to be making an announcement, and we'll talk about it later in the show today, about the Feeding the Police campaign.
Like that.
Did it with the Triv show, and I think we're going to try to continue on. We have at least one scheduled so far with a bunch more in the works, as far as I know.
If I remember right, that was the first time in a decade and a half that I had seen you.
Yes. Was it Twinsburg?
Twinsburg, yeah.
I remember my wife had the day off that day, and her sister had the day off that day. They stopped by, and then you stopped by, and it was it was very cool.
Yeah, that was during COVID. At some point during COVID, and I know Billy just called me up. Was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. Do you want a free lunch?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." I was like, "Anytime smoking rock and roll is offered for free, I'm in." And then once I got there and saw what it was, I was like, "All right, well, I could pass out some food to some police too. I'm pro cop." And that's what I did. I helped Billy and you guys pass out meals to all the different cops. It's great.
With everything that's been going on in the past couple of years with the police, and
sure,
the fact that you don't have to love when the police are behind you and they pull you over.
Yeah, of
but
course not.
Usually they're doing it for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of got to respect the job that they do and what they have to put up with. And they've been demonized.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy what it is these days, man. It's like, everybody hates the cops till they need the cops. And that's such a garbage way to live. It's just, what? Would you want to do that job? Could they pay you enough money to do that job?
You could pay me enough money to do any job at this point in my life. But, it would be a tough job to do right now because you get no respect.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's a job that, is very tough. And, the media, the way that they are now, and protests over everything.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we need to bring back. And I was happy to get the call from Billy this morning.
Sure.
I know we've got some people lined up that are going to be sponsoring. Now, if you'd like to sponsor one of these things, you can get a hold of Billy, or you can email me, SethWilliams32@yahoo.com, SethWilliams32@yahoo.com. And we can try to do something there because I think a lot of people want to get involved in something like this.
Of course. Yeah, and it's a fun event. It doesn't sound like it's any big deal just showing up and handing out lunches and stuff, but man, you don't know the appreciation the cops feel until you do it. You actually see it, they stop being cops and start being, hey, I know when I did it, and people were like, how do you know Billy or whatever? And I was like, oh, this, that. And I would tell them that I too was on MMS for a while. And they would be like, oh man, that's right. I used to listen back and, the cops stop being cops and they start being regular Marys and Janes again. They start being regular people, and it's a good time. It's definitely a good time. I bet you, I don't know this, but I would imagine that if people just want to come out and hand out meals, I'm sure that's probably welcome. No?
Oh, absolutely. Now, here's the deal. Feeding the police is great. I'm not sure why anyone would want to be a police officer today, but thankfully there are people that do.
Yeah.
The thing that people don't seem to understand, like these police events, Tripp talked about them a lot.
Sure.
And, we were on the air talking about it all the time, but not all of them were just, 20,000 people sitting at the police station, watching police eat. That's not what it's about.
No.
You can come out. You can absolutely come out. You can come out and enjoy the food. You can come out and do, say hi to the cops, thank the cops, and we want you to do that. But it's basically about us just giving back to the police themselves,
sure,
and firefighters sometimes, and first responders. I mean, that's what we're there for,
right?
It's not, especially now. It's not. This is not for. It doesn't benefit me. I don't get paid to go out there and do this.
Right, sure.
I just want to do it, and I know Billy wants to do it. Joe Burdick from Burdick Custom Flags, he makes the flags that he hands to the police officers, and they have hanging in their department. It's a very good thing, and it's for them. But we, of course, invite everybody to come out and hang out with us.
It's just a good opportunity to say, you know what? Even though you guys are getting treated like shit by most people, thanks. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Thanks for making it so that I don't have to keep a gun in my hand every night when I go to bed. It's the little tiny things people can demonize the cops all they want, but in the end, if you go to bed without a gun in your hand and you're not worried about waking up tomorrow, that's because there's cops on duty. You may not believe that, but that is the truth of the matter. That is 100% why you can do that. And you better be thankful they're there, because that job, no thank you.
And it's so frustrating because, one of the things that I get so angry about and have been angry about, not to keep bringing it up, but with this show is, in my opinion, there is a right and there's wrong.
Sure.
Now, when it comes to the police, just like in every single profession that there are bad people.
Right.
Right. There are bad doctors, there are bad lawyers, and yes, some of the bad doctors cost lives. So don't sit there and say that if the police makes a wrong decision, they can kill somebody. Well, yes, but it happens in a lot of professions. Sure. And there's a lot of bad in every single profession. There are a lot of really bad teachers out there, and I think that teachers are a very important profession too. But there are some really bad ones out there.
Right.
But when it comes to the police, again, Triv always said, if somebody's breaking your home, you're not calling a plumber.
Right. No, that's right. Look, I say this all the time on all of my dumb shows, but you know what? And if you're guilty of an ism, then you're an idiot. Whether it's racism, transism, whatever it is, if you are literally putting people into a collective as a group and saying, well, that whole group is X, Y, or Z, whatever it is, good or bad, you're a moron, because it's just not true. And I would say that hating the cops is the same as hating black people. It's a different race that you're hating. You're hating the blue race instead of the, black race or the Chinese race or whatever it is. It's the same. They're like you said, there's bad cops. Of course there are. There's bad lawyers. There's bad doctors. There's bad plumbers. There's bad architects,
But you can't pick one case and just label them all bad.
No. No, you should label you should label the bad ones as assholes. Now I will say this, with the cops, I personally think they should come down way harder on the cops. That not necessarily to make mistakes, like the guy that accidentally shoots somebody and they make a decision in a tenth of a second and shoot somebody.
Right.
But the ones that use the badge to, rape chicks or to do whatever, I definitely think they should come down way harder, treat it like the death penalty. I mean, really, if you're using your badge for bad, you should get a minimum 25-year sentence so that you discourage the behavior, but
Absolutely.
it's not what's on the books yet. So, for now, we'll just have the media demonize the cops and then a select group of people that go around hating cops, I guess, but won't be us.
Well, we're going to get into more of what we're going to be doing a little bit later in the show, but right now our guest has actually joined us.
Okay, excellent.
Which I'm very excited about.
Sure.
We talked about on the show maybe a month ago about cow mutilations that have been happening.
Right.
The tongue has been removed, the insides removed. No blood, no tire tracks, no footprints, nothing.
Wow.
And I know this man has studied it, as well as many other UFOs and everything else going on. Actor, UFOnut.com. Chuck Zukowski, how are you, my friend?
Good. I don't know about actor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what it says in your IMDb. So,
well, they say that I guess if if you have a TV show, they just refer to you as an actor, even though I'm just an investigator, and it was my TV show. Although there was one B-rated movie that I did where I did act, and
Nice.
it's just like a horror flick, a scary movie thing. And what they did, it was almost like it was a combination of reality and then non-reality, sort of like the Blair Witch Project.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I guess in that case, that would be the only acting. Everything else is just basically being me, being an investigator. And with Alien Highway, there was no scripts or anything. A lot of times I met the people, my witnesses, for the first time in person, before I've talked to them on the phone. And they just ran, cameras on us while I just interviewed them for the first time. And there was no, stop, let's redo this or anything like that. Worked out pretty well.
I really appreciate you joining us tonight. I know that we've done a lot on this show talking about the stuff that's been going on in Texas with the animals and everything. And people are very interested in this kind of stuff. How long have you been studying UFOs and stuff like that?
Oh gosh, I've been in it for over 3 decades now, about 35 years. When I was quite young, I was in elementary school, and it was about 10 years ago. No, and I remember, I was always fascinated with Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff. And I came from a small town in Safford, Arizona, small town, and I've always had a fascination with paranormal ever since I can remember. And then as I got older, I decided to get more involved in it. I started going to, lectures and conferences, and decided to, start doing my own investigations. And then when I started doing that, I actually found out that my mom and my aunt both had experiences when they were young. So it might be in the family.
Now, I don't even know where to begin because there's so much I want to ask you. But the latest story that we had seen and that we started talking about were these cattle again that were found. I know that the cattle has been this kind of story has been around for a while, but they've been mutilated to the point where there's no tire tracks, no footprints. The carcasses have been kind of lifted up and maybe put down where they've been, but the precision of the removing of the organs, the precision of the way this stuff is done can't really be explained. Now, what's going on?
Well, this has been going on for years and years and years. Actually, I think the first case was around 1896, I believe, in Missouri. But it really became popular in 1967 with Snippy the horse outside of Alamosa. Snippy was found at the base of Blanca Peak over in San Luis Valley here in Colorado. And that was really the first case of mutilation that went worldwide. And matter of fact, for your viewers out there, if you're ever in Alamosa area, there's a little town called Hooper, and the UFO Watchtower is there, and it's run by my good friend Judy Meslin, my good friend, and I forgot her name, right? And anyway, she acquired Snippy the horse's bones, so she's got a skeleton of Snippy the horse from '67 on display there. So if you're ever in the Alamosa area, it's kind of interesting to see that. But this has been going around, like I said, since the late 1800s. But since 1967, we estimated over 10,000 cases, well over that by now, kind of worldwide. And for every case that law enforcement investigated, they've never found evidence of an animal being a predator or a human causing it. There's no clue. Now, for every case that I do, I always learn about 2 or 3 other cases that happened to the rancher in the past. So that's how you get that 10,000 cases.
Right.
So scary thing.
Sure. Chuck, what role do you think the media has in getting people to disbelieve ufology or UFOs? And I think it has a huge part, because every time they portray anybody as seeing UFOs or whatever, they portray them as some nut off the trailer park in the middle of Arkansas somewhere. And then when it is somebody legitimate, like an astronaut or a Buzz Aldrin or somebody, they kind of keep that as quiet as they could possibly keep it. You know, do you think that the media is part of the reason that people's belief in UFOs and in extraterrestrials, I guess, is not more widely accepted?
Well, of course. I mean, when I first started doing this, they called me a UFO nut. You're just
Sure.
some UFO nut guy. So instead of getting mad, I decided to roll with it. I go, "You gonna call me a nut? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna own it."
Sure.
And matter of fact, I own the word UFO nut is trademarked now. So I am the official UFO nut here in the United States because I just owned it. And I put it on my license plate. My motorcycle says, a UFO biker. My trailer says camper says UFO lab. And so I kind of owned it years ago. And by doing that, it made me more credible as a person, that when I do my investigations, because I own it, I make sure that I think about it and address it analytically first. I try and eliminate all possibilities and plausibilities before you claim otherwise. Now, with animal mutilations, the media, they're first to say, well, it's a human, it's somebody, doing that, but they have no clue. Their education or experience in investigating a dead animal is zero.
Right.
Let alone some of the people that I've actually talked to who are reporters, they couldn't stand the sight of seeing a dead cow, let alone doing an investigation. Same thing with UFOs too. Now that's changed over the last few years since 2017, when it became public that the Pentagon, is running their own UFO investigations. I kind of knew they were way before that, just because of some people that I ran into that were associated with the government. So I had an idea that they were already doing it. But it seems recently now, especially since our fighter pilots are coming out saying, blah, look at this, look what I've seen, And for the debunkers and the skeptics out there that say, oh, that's BS, I just laugh at them, because you can't compare just some guy sitting on a couch that pretends to be a couch investigator to one of our best fighter pilots, in our military, who's trained to see anomalies, to see things for their jets, to actually be able to, identify. I mean, there's a complete database of missiles and aircraft and all kinds of things that are in every jet, to be able to identify within a millisecond, what the radar's picked up. And when all that data cannot identify what the radar's seeing, what the pilot's, seeing, that becomes a problem.
Sure. All right, but at the same time, we have a government that refuses to acknowledge that they can pick up a Chinese spy balloon going across with our radars. So I guess I agree with Chris about the media, but is the government more to blame for not telling us what's going on?
Well, yes and no, because there's secret handshakes that we don't know about. I mean, the nuclear arms treaty that we had allowed China and Russia to fly things over the U.S. periodically, so many times a year, and we in turn flew things over their countries too, so many times a year, and that kind of kept us all in check. So there is, and there's probably still is, some type of a handshaking behind the scenes to make sure that we don't get out of hand as far as Russia and China is concerned, and vice versa. So like the balloon thing, I think the reason why they didn't make a big deal about it is because they knew about it and somewhat allowed it to a point, until it became such, big in the media, blew up, that, they actually took it down. But, I worked at Roswell years ago, and Roswell security actually caught a Chinese, basically a salesperson, representative from China, that was over, they were wow, in our fab, and they were touring this dignitary, from China, and that son of a gun was stealing secrets, and they caught him. So I wouldn't trust China as far as I could throw an elephant. And I'm sure they probably couldn't trust us either way too. But there's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Now, yes, I think when you get to that level where you get the people talking to the public, there's probably some suppression there too, and it might be just because of that whole giggle factor of, ridicule, disbelief, and being made fun of. So a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. Jimmy Carter saw a UFO. Ronald Reagan saw a UFO. They came out publicly and said it. So
sure.
Depends on who you are.
Do you think, though, that maybe they think that the people aren't ready to hear something like that? They're like, the people aren't prepared to know that there's aliens.
And I am afraid so. And unfortunately, I have a tendency to agree with them somewhat. And you go, whoa, why would you agree with them? Well, it changed my mind during COVID. We went into a fight or flight situation. People were fighting each other for toilet paper and paper towels. And they were hoarding, and they were, hoarding diapers and all kinds of stuff. And it became a fight or flight situation. So, and that was just COVID. Now, if the government comes out and says, hey, we have aliens flying over, what do you think is going to happen? The very first thing that's going to happen is people are going to hit the grocery stores, and they're going to start hoarding food, and they're just, it's unfortunate, but that's exactly what's going to happen. So I would have disagreed with that before COVID, but after physically seeing with my own eyes the way people were reacting and fighting with each other just over toilet paper, paper towels, hand wipes, it's like, yeah, I think we're still in the infinite stage of our species where we really don't understand. We obviously don't understand how we retain photos in our own mind. How do we dream? How do we keep those pictures? How can we go back and remember things? We still don't understand how our own body works. How can we possibly understand what an alien does and how it thinks and how it works?
Sure. I want to swing back to the cattle mutilation for a minute, and I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here, just because I'm sure you've had doubters, and I'm not saying I'm a doubter. I'm saying I'm an I don't knower guy.
No, go ahead.
That being said, every time I hear these stories about cattle being mutilated, my first thought is, why does it always happen only to cattle? Why haven't we come across a person that's been cut up like this, or an elephant, or or a zoo? Why haven't you got a whole collection of different species all in one place in like a zoo? Why hasn't it happened there? Why does it only happen to cattle? And why is there never like ma and pa sitting on the porch and they see their cattle getting cut up?
Well, actually it does.
Okay.
And the thing is because a lot of people that aren't involved in it like I am really don't know the breadth of it, how it expands. I personally have investigated horses, goats, pigs, a dog, besides cows, elk, and then there have been cases of human mutilation. There's a famous case out of Brazil. I think if you type human mutilation Brazil, you'll actually see a human who was cut up just like an animal is. Okay. I know of a situation here in the U.S. in Tennessee in the Appalachians. I know of another situation. These are years ago, nothing recently, in Canada, where a woman was found mutilated. The problem with humans, though, and this is my background in law enforcement. I was a deputy sheriff for 8 years. I was a volunteer. My day job is IC mass design. I apologize. You probably hear my phone going off.
That's okay.
I'm still part of a team. We're working on the LiDAR system, and everybody's chatting with each other. Sure. But basically, unless you really delve into animal mutilations, there's a lot to it. Now with the humans, though, like I said, being law enforcement, if it's a human, it's a homicide, and if it's unsolved, the judge can put a gag order on everything and keep it from the public because it's still an unsolved crime until they actually find the culprit. Okay. They never will. But I've actually seen photos. I talked to other investigators, one in Canada, one on the East Coast, that caught wind of a human. Now, it doesn't happen a lot, so I don't want to scare anybody out there. Now, this is still somewhat hearsay, except for the pictures that you see of the Brazilian case. But people claim to be abducted all the time too. So, it's something you have to think about.
Right on.
Now, what about Roswell? I mean, I know that, growing up as a kid, one of those things that you kind of have to ask somebody that's in your field is Roswell Area 51 real? Is there a crash site? Is there stuff going on there? What happened?
You happen to pick the right person.
That's all I've been reading about you. So yes.
So yes, when I first started doing investigations out of California, I really got involved with Roswell. And when we would go on vacation, every time we go on vacation, we drive, I go by Roswell or by White Sands or Dulce or Taos or wherever. But I've been through Roswell so many times from the early days that, I got to meet Glenn Dennis, the mortician, Walter Hott, the person who released Roswell Army Air Force Base captured flying disc, So I got to actually meet and became friends with, those guys actually from 1947. I was also friends with Stanton Friedman. Later on, I was, as I got better at this, I was lecturing, with Stanton. So I got to meet the guys that started Stanton Friedman, meaning he re-released it to the public back in, I forget, what was it, late 70s or something. I got to meet, and I was good friends with Jesse Marcel Jr. Matter of fact, I was the first person and only person that took Jesse Marcel Jr. out to the debris site. Okay. So he could and actually see, what he, the area where the material was that he saw when he was like 8 or 9. It was really cool for me to get involved with that from the very beginning. Now I did back in about 2000. So I did 2 archaeology digs with the Sci-Fi Channel. And the first one, it's a really long story, which probably means another podcast. But the bottom line is after the production company cut and left, I argued with the archaeologists from the University of New Mexico to let me come back the next day. I say argue because it was a heated argument, 1:30 in the morning, to let me come back the next day, 5 in the morning, and do my own dig while the archaeologists were there cleaning up the mess from the production company. And by letting me do my own dig the way I wanted to do it and not the way Sci-Fi wanted to do it, I found a piece of metal. And my sister and I were working on it. So I was doing the strip digging. It's 1 by 5 meter strip digs, about maybe 8 inches deep at the most, because you're only going back 60, 70 years. Sure. And I found a little piece of metal. And it's not the size of the, I won't say middle finger, I'll use index finger. And it was triangular. And I was digging the dirt. My sister Debbie was sifting it, and she it came out of the dirt. And when it hit the sun, all 3 corners, it's not a perfect triangle, but just triangular shape. Mm-hmm. All 3 sides curled up when it hit the sun. When you put it in a little manila envelope, flattened out again. So it was either conducive to heat or solar radiation or light or something, but it did it every time. I asked the University of New Mexico, I asked the International UFO Museum in Roswell, I also asked Sci-Fi if we could do more tests on it, because they only did like a $25 visual test on all the artifacts we found. And the lab says, well, this looks like the back of duct tape. And I said, no, it's not the back of duct tape. No. So they wouldn't do it. So I convinced the archaeologist, before he had it archived, to let me borrow it for a couple of months. Actually, I had it for about 4 weeks. And I ran my own tests here in Colorado Springs using electron scanning microscope. And it turned out to be an aluminum silicon alloy with trace elements of titanium. Now, what the hell is that doing under that much dirt in the middle of the desert?
Right.
And then, so the next year, I did a press release at Roswell. And lo and behold, who popped up and said, hey, my lab will research that further for you? Robert Bigelow, the billionaire that we later found out in 2017 was working for the government, right, for the Pentagon. So he was probably working there also at that time too. And so they took it, and within the first week, I got an email. This is on my website, even the emails on my website, on my on my blogs. I blog about everything. I don't hide any. Well, a couple things I hide, but not most. Majority of stuff I don't hide. And the email says, well, within the first week, it turns out to be an unknown polymer based on the catalog of known or most popular polymers that the lab had. which that tells me that it wasn't common to anything like aluminum foil or anything like that, that it was unknown. It doesn't mean it's unknown to the planet. It just means it wasn't a common polymer.
Okay.
So then I asked the lab, what's next? And they said, isotope analysis. We want to see if it's from the Earth. That's the last I heard of Bigelow. It went right into the sinkhole.
Right.
And it was exactly a year later, I got an email from the lab after multiple times of asking. And this is in the book, The 37th Parallel, for anybody out there that wants to read about this. Not my book. It was written by Ben Mesrick about me, but it's all in there. I got an email back saying, oh, it was nothing. And we sent it back to the University of New Mexico. But I don't know if well, of course, I'm sure they knew that. So what I did was the actual piece itself, I had to go through the whole process of talking with the board of directors, the University of New Mexico, and the archaeology department, the whole bit, to allow the piece to be analyzed. So there's a lot of paperwork, about a couple months of paperwork I had to do. But part of the paperwork was you're going to cut a piece off and give the piece to Bigelow and still keep a piece in archive. And that's what they did. So we still have an original piece in archive.
Wow.
Now, wasn't there a run back in the day where people wanted to storm Area 51 and people talked about? Because I know that there was like a group of people that's putting all over social media that they got to run, they're going to storm the gates and see what's there.
Yeah,
but they didn't do it. Right?
Yeah, that was around 2019 when I was doing Alien Highway, because at the time Alien Highway was being broadcasted on the Travel Channel. So Travel Channel actually contacted me and said, "Can you do a little piece on, we're gonna videotape you, via the internet of what's going to happen if you storm Area 51." And so I kind of did that. It's still on the Travel Channel's website, Alien Highway website, where it says, a little video of me telling people not to do it. Because when I was in California too, I was also an Area 51 connoisseur, and I knew all the guys back then, talking with them, and one of the main guys, his name was Glenn Campbell, not the singer, but his name was Glenn Campbell, and he had a little trailer outside the little Alien Inn in Rachel, Nevada, and he was an investigator. And I have actually somewhere in my books back here, I have his field guide of investigating Area 51. So I had hired, I was set to go with a guide to Freedom Ridge to take pictures of Area 51. And matter of fact, let me see this finger right there. You're somewhere over there. There it is. Anyway, one of those pictures behind me is actually the picture I shot from Area 51. But right before I went to go out on Freedom Ridge, Nellis Air Force Base land grabbed Freedom Ridge. So then I talked with my guide, and they said, well, there's this mountain called Tigaboo Peak. We've only had a couple of people go up so far, so we'll be cutting a trail up there. I said, sounds cool to me. And so I went ahead and went and hiked up Tigaboo Peak, and it was probably about 19 miles away. And I shot pictures of Area 51, and actually one of the pictures that I took, you can see something flying by off in the distance. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
I'm trying to shut off my phone so you don't hear that anymore.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
You're fine.
Okay, I'm not going to talk to him anyway. I'm talking to you guys.
Right. Let me ask you this, Chuck, and I'll give you a bit of background before I ask the question. When I was in the military, which a lot of years ago at this point, back in the late 80s, I was in the military. But I was in my hair. Yeah, I know, not with this, but yeah, I had a better haircut then. But I was an MI guy, and I worked in skiffs, and I had a TS NATO clearance, so I got to see a lot of stuff, and a lot of cool stuff, and a lot of stuff that people still don't know exists. I've always thought with Area 51, and I could be dead wrong, and you certainly know more than I do. Mm-hmm. I've always thought that Area 51, by keeping it blocked off and keeping it as nobody can see it, is just one of the more magnificent military spoofs. That there's probably not a whole lot going on there, but they let the public and the media think that there's a lot going on there. while they're doing stuff somewhere else. And I say that from actually seeing more. I saw it more in the missile thing, but that's what we did with the missiles. Was there were areas. I was stationed in Korea, and there were places that people knew about, and that generally was the places that people knew about were the places that if they got bombed, it didn't hurt us at all.
Mm-hmm.
But there was plenty of other places around that nobody ever spoke about where all the good stuff was at. Do you think that, especially given the phenomenon and the interest of an Area 51 and the rise of Art Bell and Art Bell's push to everything to Media 51 or Area 51, that could be just kind of a diversionary point for where we truly study UFOs and alien extraterrestrials and that type of thing?
Well, I think originally it was exactly for that.
Okay.
If you study the stuff, because Roswell went to Wright-Patterson. It was called Wright Base at the time. And the reason why the debris from Roswell went there is because that was the only base that had the Foreign Technology Department during World War II. So that made sense to take unknown debris and stuff there to the Foreign Technology Department. That's where you have Hangar 18, whatever.
Sure.
But it seems like just after that, Area 51 started being developed in the early 50s, 51 or so. And Area 51 is just a quadrant, 51 quadrant over by Nellis Air Force, like that, but they just call it Area 51 or Groom Ridge or whatever.
Sure.
So the idea was to build that, and then there's underground facilities there to transfer the wreckage over there and anything else that they have at Area 51. And that's where, oh geez, I see his face. I just drew a blank. Well, where the physicist, ended up working at S4 over there.
Sure.
And he came out public later on. So, yes, I think at one point there was, and there might still be, some stuff going on. I interviewed a commercial airline pilot for a TV show that I did. Actually, I had a 1 hour episode. It's called Unexplained Files. It was season 2, and that was the Paranormal Highway of America. That's what sparked the book, The 37th Parallel. I interviewed a commercial pilot who was coming from California, flying near Vegas outside of Nellis, and then they asked him to divert. And as they were diverting away from their normal flight path, he was a co-pilot at the time. He saw a bunch of balls of light come down, stop, and shoot down to a holographic runway on Area 51. So, yeah, I think they're still messing around with stuff there.
Okay.
I'm trying to stop this thing from happening, keep beeping, but I apologize for that.
We're getting a lot of people asking the same kind of question. What is your opinion of Bob Lazar?
I'm sorry, that was Bob Lazar. That's what I was thinking of.
That's what they were saying.
Well, there's
I
his
could see
opinion.
his face, I could see his dark hair, his glasses, and I was just drawing a blank Bob Lazar.
Now, he's a conspiracy theorist kind of guy, correct?
Well, yeah, I think he's on to something, because I was good friends with Stanton Friedman, and we went back and forth over Bob Lazar because I believed him and Stanton Friedman didn't believe, because I'm a nuclear physicist and he's not, and I love Stanton Friedman, but I would love to debate him back and forth. And we went back and forth for a while because Bob Lazar could never prove that he was at Area 51 or S4, or some of the other places that he said he worked at. Well, basically what he did was he worked for these government facilities just through payroll. And then after that, he was at Area 51, but the payroll went through these other companies. That's how they kind of, hide the tracks. And some of the companies he talked about, you could never find his name except for one time. And finally, Stanton Friedman saw it. There was one phone book that came out every quarter. Rockwell had them too. And our names would pop up, and every quarter when you get new employees leave, you update it. Bob Lazar was in that phone book for one time. And Stanton Friedman goes, "Oh, okay. We got to put this in my gray basket now."
Sure.
And I always thought that was funny because he called it a gray basket. for aliens that are grace.
Right, sure.
So I personally think, from what Bob Lazar said about the sport model, about the amplifier pods, the gravity A and gravity B waves, the element, gosh, I can't remember, is it 117, 160 something that he talked about that didn't exist. And then, a decade or so later, the US combined with Russia says, hey, guess what we what we found in the same element years ago that Bob Lazar already talked about. They discovered it. So it's, or is it element 115? I forget. I might have to remember because I'm lecturing in Roswell this year, so I might have
to. Nice. Chuck, what do you think about the rise recently, in the last five years, I would say, of what they're calling alternative media or new media, the BitChutes of the world, I don't want to say like YouTube necessarily, but the offshoots of YouTube, where anybody that has a camera can make any kind of documentary that says any kind of a thing. And now if you go out there and you look, where before in the old days, 5 years plus ago, I guess if you want to call that the old days, you had to have a little bit of money behind you, whether it was a TV show or a TV organization or whatever, to do shows like you did with Alien Highway. Mm-hmm. Now anybody with a webcam and and that can speak fairly well can put out a video that says, I saw Joe Biden unzipping his skin suit and he's really a gray underneath. And there's a portrayal of people, there's a collection of people that will believe that. Does that hurt the cause of proving UFOs and extraterrestrials because anybody now can have an opinion? It makes it just that much harder to weed out what is real versus what is not?
Well, it's not really an opinion, and I'll explain why in a second.
Okay.
It's making money. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
So you have every jackhole
right.
out there that wants to make money. And they're making money every time you go to a YouTube channel and the person, you're watching them and they're saying something. They say, don't forget to hit the bell and hit the like and everything, because the more clicks they get, the more money they make, the more people that watch it.
Sure.
And every time, you go to these YouTube sites and they're running commercials, they're making money off of you while you're watching, trying to get the information. So from the UFO standpoint, there's been just amount of trash out there of people making stuff up, making, faking UFO sightings, because all they want is numbers. And they suck you right in. They suck the viewers right in. So what you got to do is when you see something like that, you've got to say, okay, where is this person coming from? Is this person an investigator? Has been doing this for years? Does he have some type of experience, some credibility, or is he just some Yahoo that hold a camera up? Now, the other thing too is I laugh at these most of the time because I've been doing this over 30 years. You don't see the chances of you seeing a UFO and filming it and something phenomenal happening, like it disappearing or shooting off or whatever, attacking each other, is, millions and millions and millions to one. Okay, really hard. So anytime you see any video out there where that person just happens to catch something phenomenal, and it's running a commercial while you're watching it, just click that sucker off. That guy is just trying to dupe you. He's making money off you. Right. That's the problem with a lot of these videos. I released a video last night on my website of something that I shot last week while I was on a cruise in the Mediterranean. What I do is, this is a cruise my wife and I had worked on for about a year and a half. So we finally get out there, and I always make sure, and I don't do a lot of cruises, but when I do, I make sure I have a balcony, because late at night, I'll get out there with my night vision camera and I'll shoot randomly 30-second segments. Over a period of 3-4 days, I might shoot 90 to 130-second segments. So I was shooting a few segments and going through them all, and I found one segment of this light going just barreling past, wham, and I went, okay, that's pretty cool. I got shooting stars and I got satellites, so I could compare all that. because the satellite is a really faint light that it stays, and then you get the airplanes that have the strobes. You don't have to off a distance, your night vision camera. The one that I use, this little guy right here, that's $1,000 camera right there. It's a Psionics Pro 4. Okay. And it originally was designed for a rifle scope, but it's really, really good for night vision. And then like you're shooting stars and stuff. But this thing was just a streak. Right now you can see it on my website. I just posted it on my website. Matter of fact, I think I sent you a link.
You do. I actually have it. I can play it. I don't think we can talk during it, but I'll play it real quick so people can see what you're talking about. It's only a minute long. So do you mind if I play it?
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
All right, hang on. Here we go.
So if you go to the website and you click it and watch it, you'll get a little bit better clarity than what you just saw on here. Right. So it'll come out a little bit better. But if you look, you could see it just shooting straight across. It was coming in out of frame and going out of frame, and it was moving extremely fast.
UFOnut.com, correct?
Yeah, UFOnut.com. And it like I said, after maybe 50 or 60 of these 30-second things that I've shot over a period of 5-6 days, you'll catch one anomaly. So when you see something like that, that's what we generally catch. Now, when you watch these YouTube videos, and you'll see a light coming in, it'll stop, and then it'll do this, and it'll go down,
right?
And it'll make a pretty face, and then it'll take off. You got to question those, because now there are some cases where people will film stuff that's circling, but for the odds of you actually taking a camera and looking up and then catching something phenomenal, in this case, it was 80 or 90 times of me going out in the middle of the night shooting 30-second segments to be able to catch just that.
Right. Now we have now we're here in Cleveland, Ohio. So Lake Erie is right here, and I know that I have a good friend, Jim, who actually shot a video with his cell phone, and I believe that I saw the same kind of thing, and somebody else just texted into the show about people seeing UFOs off of Lake Erie. Now, they looked like orange balls. There was one, and it kind of came down towards the horizon, and then there was another one that kind of came down to the horizon, and they didn't move very much at all. They were just kind of sitting there. And then there was, I think, a third one that came down. And obviously they weren't airplanes, because they were not the color of anything like that. It didn't look like anything I had ever seen before. And he had video of it. And I thought it was super cool. And I mean, can you just see stuff like that every now and then? Was that an anomaly? Is that something that sounds familiar? Do you see orange?
Oh, sure. Sure. Now, a lot of time people refer to those, as orbs or something they'll see close to the ground too. But those are called balls of light. And back in the day during World War II, our pilots and even the Japanese pilots saw them, while they're, out on patrol or whatever. They call them Foo Fighters. The band, the Foo Fighters, they probably got that name from the Foo Fighters back in the, during World War II. It was a ball of light that our pilots and bombers were seeing, and sometimes they would actually track the airplane and follow the airplanes. Now, there are reports of our pilots, and there are reports of the Japanese pilots seeing these things. The Japanese thought it was some type of secret weapon that we had. We thought it was some type of secret weapon the Japanese had, or maybe the Germans had. But these things, our pilots were seeing. They call them Foo Fighters because back in the day, there was a comic book. I forget the name of the character of the comic book, but he would say, where there's food, there's fire. So that's where the word came up, Foo Fighters. So we're still seeing those today. I actually filmed a couple of them on location shooting Alien Highway because we were in an active area. And these balls of light are seen. Sometimes they're seen a week or two before animal mutilations occur out in the rural area. Sometimes they're seen, in a not so rural area. I've seen a video of one going by a dash cam, or I'm sorry, camera, security camera, outside someone's house, something flying by. So, they are out there scooting around, and we've known about them since, like I said, since the mid 40s. These balls of light are probably what you guys noticed over there. Now, the difference between a ball of light and an orb is more spiritual. So when ghost investigators, and I've done some ghost investigations just to be able to compare the two, it's more spiritual because it's a more electromagnetic field condensed ball of light orb, and you can kind of see through. The actual ball of light you can't see through; they're solid. And I've been doing enough research on these things that it appears it's like a probe, like the type of probes that we send out. Now I'm going to throw one at you now that's going to make you go, huh? Difference between, this is going to freak out a lot of people when about these UFO sightings. The real UFO sightings where you see the light and it's near the ground, it does not reflect light. Okay. So if you're watching these videos out there and some guy sees a UFO going by and there's a shadow or something, or not, or light, that doesn't happen. The real phenomenon, the real guys, the light that we see, we perceive with our eyes is not white light. It's in a different it's a different spectrum, but we perceive it as white light, but it doesn't cast a shadow. I've got a great picture of these two kids. I can't show you because they're underage, but it's an investigation I was working on a few years ago, and I had to stop it because the mother cut me off. Wouldn't, she didn't, because of the giggle factor, she didn't want the media to exploit her kids. Sure. So I had to stop, but I still use it as an example. There was a ball of light outside in a field outside their house. They both kids saw it. They grabbed a camera. Well, they grabbed their cell phone camera. They went out there. One actually walked up to it, and he's just kind of looking at it. It's right in front of him. The other one took a picture of him. The ball of light was so bright, it's just white, but it didn't light up, didn't reflect light on the torso wall. So there's no reflection at all. Now, with Unexplained Files Season 2, when I had my own episode, the 37th Parallel, I went to Highland, Illinois, where there was a big UFO sighting down there. It was a triangular craft that, 4 different police districts were tracking it. And I interviewed one of the cops who saw it hovering over like a little mini mall, right? 7-Eleven and a couple of other stores. And he said that sucker was bright. He was staring right at the big lights. It was triangular, big lights on the back. I go, so you were standing and you were staring right at the lights, right into the lights of the exhaust or whatever. He goes, yeah. And I said, and you didn't squint? You could see her? He goes, well, it's pretty bright. I went, but you didn't squint your eyes? He goes, no. And I said, well, it was so bright that it cast a shadow on the trees or anything. Could you see a glare? He goes, well, I kind of don't remember that because I was so encompassed with, staring at it. I go, how about your patrol car? How about all those reflective decals on your patrol car? They must have lit up like a Christmas tree. And that's when it hit him. Because he always thought the possibility of it being terrestrial was the case. But his patrol car was dark.
Wow.
And none of the 911 or none of the decals that we always see lit up. And back then, a few years ago, there was decals everywhere on the patrol cars. Nothing lit up, and it scared him. He's a detective now, and I didn't mean to scare him, but he goes. Then all of a sudden, the whole train of thought of it being terrestrial turned into something else. At that complete moment, when he realized that it didn't reflect light, it didn't light up the decals. What the heck was he staring at? And that's the case.
So somebody wants to know, do you think UFOs use water sources like Lake Erie or oceans?
Oh, I love that guy. Who is that person? I love him. Yeah, that's my theory. And it's been on my website for a few years now. It's hydrogen. Because every one of the every one of the animal mutilation cases that I've worked on, there's a water source nearby. Even now, there's water sources that were nearby. The one in Texas, there was water sources nearby. The one in Oregon and out here in Colorado. And matter of fact, I got a call from or text from a rancher about a week or so ago that a ball of light shot right in front of his truck when he was driving, and the Purgatory River is nearby, and there was balls of light around there. So the theory is it's hydrogen, because if you really think about it, it's hydrogen and oxygen, right? H2O that makes up H2O that makes up water. Now, we don't have a lot of hydrogen in our atmosphere. Very little. It's oxygen, nitrogen. Very, very little hydrogen. All the hydrogen in the planet is in our water system. It's also in our petroleum-based products. Crude oil is very, very rich in hydrogen. You can extract hydrogen off of that. So here's the theory: is they're using hydrogen for either some type of a fuel source or to sustain environmental life on their, on their craft or whatever. But here's something that I just kind of threw in within the last month that, the more I researched this, how Commander Fravor and some of the other fighter pilots, they see the Tic Tacs, they see them zip by. And if you read the reports, they say there's no signs of any type of rudder type of movement on these things like you'd see on airplanes, right? It's just kind of a round thing. Right. So there's nothing that shows that, like a submarine or anything, that shows how it could turn. Not only that, but there's absolutely no sign of an exhaust. So they don't know how it's propelled. Now, here's my latest theory on that. If it is hydrogen, our sun uses hydrogen in, and then by using fusion, right, it converts hydrogen into our sunlight. And so it takes hydrogen on the outside of the sun and go to the core of the sun. With fusion, you get our light. Now, the light that's hitting the planet from fusion is ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B light. We can't see that. It's visible to us. Ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B. Ultraviolet light is what burns our skin, right? Right. Why we have UV protectors. We can't see that. Our fighter pilots don't have the sensors to pick up ultraviolet light, because if they did, all they see is light, what we see, and it would just white out the sensors. They do use an ultraviolet light along with infrared light combined to track missiles and other aircraft because of infrared, and then the infrared masks some of the ultraviolet light so you can see a shadow effect. So that's a technology. That's the only way they can use ultraviolet light. So if they are using hydrogen, their exhaust could be ultraviolet light, which we can't see. Therefore, we think there's no exhaust. We just can't see it.
Could the other part of using the ocean be a little more simpler? Just be the fact that there are places out there in the ocean that are so deep that we can't get to it, or we don't see it, where it just be a good place to hide.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, that's a prime fact by using oceans, because 70% of this planet is covered with oceans. Not only that, but recently, within the past year, scientists have found out there's more water under the Earth than there is above the Earth. Oh. So we have more water underneath us, vast oceans of water underneath us, that's greater than the amount of oceans that we see with our own eyes. Wow. So now you have a twofold system. There's a lot of UFOs that go in and out of lakes and streams and stuff. So in my opinion, especially even water troughs, balls of light are seen around water troughs where cattle, were mutilated. So that tells me, well, you can't go into a water trough and hide, because there's no base in there. So they're obviously consuming the hydrogen because they can take oxygen right out of the air. The hydrogen is a little harder to get. Now, the bases, underwater bases, sure. One of the episodes for Alien Highway, we looked at the possibility of a base outside of Malibu, where there's, you can actually see some type of a structure. We do know there's been some rumors that under the continental shelf, submarines have been able to go under the U.S. quite far. So, because it is kind of, we joke about sometimes, if I lived in California, about California breaking into the ocean, falling into the ocean. That's because it's a continental shelf. And a big enough earthquake would just break the shelf. And that's all. It was just fall down into the water, and the water would come in. So yes, there's probably bases under, especially Gulf of New Mexico, supposedly is a good sized one out there. The area or Devil's Triangle was always thought that there'd be another one over there. But we have a lot of UFOs that bug out underground here, Dulce, New Mexico, big time, right? Now, when you go into underground caverns, like also in Missouri where the Joplin spook lights are and stuff, you can get to water sources down there pretty darn quick too. Now that we know there's more water underground than there is above the ground, that makes more sense that it might be hydrogen. You know, the hydrogen theory makes a little bit more sense now.
I feel bad because I know we're keeping a long time here, but I still have some questions, if you don't mind.
No, go right ahead. I'm pretty much done with work today.
Nice.
So I get a lot of crap because I talk about how the Aztecs had drawings of what looked like spacemen inside of capsules. And I talk about the pyramids being too sophisticated for men back then to create. Is there any possible truth to the rumors of, alien life form coming down back then, creating the pyramids, doing that kind of thing?
Well, I think it's all been through history. I really got the opportunity years back to meet Zachariah Stitchin. And I don't know if you're familiar with Zachariah Stitchin, but he wrote a few books. One of them was called The 12th Planet. He would decipher ancient Sumerian text. And it was really, really cool, some of the stuff he was saying. Of course, the scientific field, was saying, well, it's misinterpreting what the scrolls are saying. And he says, well, I found them in a library. When the library for the Sumerians was basically City Hall. So this was documents coming out of City Hall, and this is what they were saying. Some of the scientists, some of the other debunkers were saying, well, these were just stories. And then he's going, okay, so you got ancient Sumerian stories about flying saucers, and aliens coming down. How would you have a story unless you actually, saw it firsthand?
Right.
But the ancient Sumerians were basically saying that, this other alien life form came from the 12th planet or whatever. And we still talk about it today. The NASA still talks about Planet X. Yeah. We have Planet X out there somewhere. And how do we know we have Planet X? Because of the way that our sun is doing the hula, because that's how they find exoplanets, or suns that have exoplanets, is they look for little stars out there that are doing the hula, because the planets that are circling the sun are causing the sun to do this due to the gravitational pull of the planets. And that's how they kind of look for other planets. So we're kind of doing that too. But there's a planet out there, Planet X, supposedly, that's pulling on our sun too, and pulling on a gravitational field. We just can't find it yet. But they're theorizing it's there. Well, the ancient Sumerian says this thing comes flying by every 27,000 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And these, life form came down from the planet. And we were still in the Neanderthal type of stage of our, evolution. And what he was saying, based on ancient Sumerian text, the little scrolls that kind of look like toilet paper rolls. Yeah. These guys were phenomenal. They'd take these little toilet paper rolls, and then they would write like backwards, scratch out backwards, and then they would ink them and roll them on rice paper. They had a printing press.
Oh, wow.
Way the heck back then. And the ancient Sumerians would be the ancient Egyptians' ancestors.
Sure.
So now these guys, he's reading this stuff. Anyway, he talks about these aliens coming down, and then they have these, bipedal guys walking around. But they came down to the planet to capture material, an element that we had on our planet, to save their own planet, which is kind of interesting because we're kind of seeing that now. And it was gold. So what they did is they decided to modify the genes of the Neanderthal into human. Okay, that's not me saying this. This is what he was getting, Zachariah Stitchin was getting. And so they created these human type of guys that were mining the gold for them. And over a period of a few hundred years, they had what they wanted. Some of them decided to go back to their planet. The other ones decided to stay here and live with the humans because they interacted with the humans and started breeding with them, aka the ancient Egyptian petroglyphs of the elongated head.
Yeah.
The 7 foot tall guys with the elongated head, that's supposed to be these guys. Okay, that's where that comes from. And why people were wrapping their heads. Well, if they were wrapping their heads, to mimic someone. Who were they mimicking? They were mimicking a god. Or they were mimicking what they thought was God, which was an extraterrestrial. These are just thoughts you just got to think about.
Right.
You know, one guy just doesn't wake up one day and decide he's going to wrap his head, you know, his baby's head, and then make it elongated for whatever reason. You know,
Right.
He's going to use it for a pool cue or something, right?
Right.
So there must have been a reason for that.
Sure.
And anyway, you've seen the Egyptian petroglyphs of the male and female with the elongated heads holding a little human baby. That's what points back to the ancient Sumerians based on what Zachary Stitchin was saying.
Right.
Now, it's kind of interesting about gold, though, okay, because as a microchip designer, gold is used in microchip design because it conducts electricity. Matter of fact, there was a system called HARP years ago. I don't know if they're still using it, but that was a way of trying to fix our ozone layer, was to seed, aka remember, you know, the whole chemtrails?
Yeah.
Chemtrails, that was seeding the atmosphere with gold and a couple of other types of minerals. And then HARP was these dishes that shot high frequency radiation, basically high EMF, you know, radiation, and excited, you know, the metals
For storms and
that were conducive in our atmosphere to help, you know, fix the ozone. Originally thought they were doing that to change weather patterns. So that could be either or, because he who can control the weather can control a war, a battle, right? So originally we thought possibly that's what they were doing with the chemtrails, was experimenting a way of controlling the weather. Then it came down the road, a little bit further down the road, that maybe they were trying to repair the ozone layer. So, you know, it's a 50-50 of how you want to look at it. Either way, gold was the key element. So what are the odds that the ancient Sumerians talked about these aliens coming down in what we now know as Africa, where the Eve gene has said to come from? That we all, you know, in our DNA, we have the Eve gene. And so it all came from Africa. And Africa is a great place to mine gold, because a lot of gold mining. And it's kind of interesting how you think about what Zachary Stitchin was saying in his books. You're going, God, there's a lot of similarity and commonalities to this. I at least have to keep an open mind on it. You know, we haven't found the missing link yet to us. I'm not saying we're all aliens, you know, but I'm saying that there could be a you got to just keep an open mind about it. Right. Yeah, we do. All of us have an extrasensory perception. We have ESP. All of us do. We just, some of us can turn on, some of us can't. Your viewers are after going, no, we don't. Yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples. First off, women's intuition right off, right? If your wife, your mom, or whoever, or your mate, or whoever, you know, says, we better get out of here now. Or let's not walk down this alley, let's go this way. Let's not make a left turn, let's make a right turn. That's because the woman's intuition is picking up on some negative, some type of a negative force or something. They're able to pick up on it. Don't go to there. Okay. Now you're sitting in your car, or your truck, or whatever you're driving, or your motorcycle, and you got this feeling you're being stared at. Happened to all. You can't see it out of the peripheral vision of your eyes. But when you turn way over past your peripheral, thank you. I'm getting dry. Better start drinking some more water. The person staring at you. How did we know we were being stared at? It happens to people in restaurants too. How do we know? We have that capability of knowing. That's why Bigfoot can't be caught, because Bigfoot has got that capability amplified. We're losing it because of technology. Bigfoot hasn't lost it because they're not technology bound like we are. So they can actually sense when someone's walking up.
Right on. So Chuck, with all of the study of all of this that you've done, and you certainly know it way better than we do, what do you think we are? Do you think that we are well, let me put it another way. Do you think that the aliens are studying us? Or do you think, flip it the other way, and think that more we as a Earth as a organization is almost like an ant colony that they more or less are checking in on, that they helped create, and now they check in to make sure that it's not doing too much damage to itself.
You know, you kind of have to leave all the possibilities open. I can't say one way or another. I think aliens are here to study us.
Sure.
You know, and it'd be no different than us sending probes off to other planets and studying other planets. We think we might find microbiological whatever life in Venus and gases in Venus, the atmosphere and stuff. And anyway, so we're looking into that. But I still have dry mouth. I apologize for that. You're talking too much. So I think in a sense, I mean, years ago there was this thought that there was a treaty between aliens and our government, that there would be a transfer of technology, so the aliens would be allowed to abduct, American citizens. I mean, that's just one of the theories out there. But if they're just studying us, and they've been doing it for years, then it's just there. Now we're a very, very unique planet. We've got tons of water. We have an atmosphere, that sustains life. We have a very exciting life here on this planet, very warlike. We're fighting with each other all the time. We're creating technology. We're doing interesting things. We'd be a great race to study, of course. So maybe from that standpoint, maybe it's our resources, maybe it is our water. But and if they are here, obviously they're not here to conquer us because we're still here.
Right.
Now, if you want to believe the ancient Sumerians and seem to think that maybe we evolved somewhat, from that alien technology, then that could be a possibility too, where they're just kind of watching to see what we're going to do next.
Now we got to wrap it up, but real quick, do you think there's going to come a time? I know we've had a bunch of people asking the same question. Do you think there's going to come a time where they're going to just come down, say hello, and hang out? We're going to, actually, see them, and they're going to make themselves known to everybody. We're going to have some sort of society together. I mean, what's the future? What's their end game? I guess
War of the Worlds.
Well, I mean, could that be it? I don't know what the what we're looking at towards in the future with
Well, I can tell you from the past that they had the technology to destroy us. They had the technology to turn off our nuclear weapons. And matter of fact, that was being discussed in the Pentagon not too long ago with some of the military people who were at the military bases here in the U.S. that a UFO hovered over and shut down the nuclear missiles. So they have the technology to mess with our technology because they're so far more advanced. So they're good. Let's just say they're really good hackers. They can hack anything and manipulate it. If they really wanted to, they could drop an airplane, flying over in a second, just shut everything down and just, drop everything if they really wanted to. And they don't want to, for whatever reason, they're studying us. Now, they may also know that we're still quite in our infant stage as a species, and we're very aggressive. People take shots at UFOs all the time, physically take shots and stuff. And I do know from talking with Travis Walton, who was an abductee, that when here's a 6'4" guy, that when he woke up in the craft that he was in, and he was towering over these little grays, and he kind of lunged on them, they kind of scattered. So there is it appears that they are afraid of us somewhat. They are, from what I understand, talking to the guys from Roswell, that they are kind of fragile beings, at least the grays are. So it would be really easy to overpower these guys too. What they got on them is technology, which we don't have. So there could be a fear factor, or it could be just the fact that they're going to watch us and see what we're going to do next. If we get to the point where we might destroy the planet or get on the brinks of destroying the planet, I would hope that they would step up. That if this is their planet and they've been watching us through millennial, right, and see what's going to happen, that hopefully they would step up and say, okay, hey, look, we're going to end game, right? The war of the world, but it's to protect their world, not us, but it's to protect their world from us.
The way that this country and the way this world is going, I'd be afraid to come down here to Look at Chicago.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
That would be my only fear is to protect us from ourselves, or to protect the earth from ourselves.
Sure. And the other thing that's not being talked about here either is the what is the measurement of time? What we measure as, decades of time, 20, 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years, that might seem like 2 hours to this life form. They may live that long, and so our skirmishes just seem like that. They seem like a bar fight that's over in 3 seconds.
It could be. It absolutely could be, because we have no idea that their lifespan could be a lot longer. I always use that example with religion. God created, 6 days, and on the seventh day. And a lot of biblical people take that so literally, meaning it's 24 hours.
Right.
But really, what's an hour to a God compared to an hour of a human?
Exactly.
An hour to a God could be billions of years.
Mm-hmm.
And who are we to second guess what a God thinks like? To think like a God, you would have to be a God. And it's the same thing with aliens. To think what an alien is going to do is you got to be an alien. It's not until we actually talk to them. Now, there are some cases within our Native Americans that have communicated with what they call star travelers. And they believe, at least a couple of the different tribes that I talk to believe that there's, like 4 different entities on this planet. You have the tall guys, which we, you can call them the Nephilim or the tall blondes or whatever you want to call them. There's a bunch of different names for them. They're kind of like in control of other aliens that are visiting this planet. Then you have the reptilians, which they called, I think, the snake people.
Right.
And the reptilians are the ones that are kind of ordering the grays around. The grays they call the ant people, not because of their eyes, but because they come out of the ground, underground bases. And then they have the blues, which is cool. The blues are leprechauns, Tommyknockers, Menahunis, the guys that protect our planet. So
that's awesome.
It's in their culture.
Right.
Well, I could talk to you literally for another hour, but we're going to have to let you go, unfortunately. But thank you for coming up. Where can people find all your stuff? I mean, UFOnut.com. Where else can people see everything that you have? Yeah, UFOnet.com. I've got over 55, 56 blogs just on animal mutilations, but I have a section at the top of the website that it'll point you if you're interested in animal mutilations. If you just want to scroll through the blogs, you'll see my theories on hydrogen, ammonia, a bunch of other different things, and then Bigfoot, Menahuni, leprechauns. I love it. I just love it all because it's there's so much out there that it was really hard just to be focused on one particular topic because a lot of it interchanged. There's a lot of UFOs associated with Bigfoot sightings. There's a lot of UFOs associated with ghost investigations. Well, so I can't thank you for coming on again. YouTube also, you got a bunch of stuff on YouTube. Just check all these different places. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Just go to my website. You'll see at the very top. You can email me. That's my direct email. If you have any questions, just and I'll get back to you maybe a day or so before I get back to you because I get a lot of emails. But I make sure I answer every one of my emails. Well, hopefully we can have you on again sometime. Thank you so much, Chuck. All right, I'll be here. Great. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Right, thank you. Bye. Now that was cool to me, man. I don't know.
I'm with you. I could talk to him for days.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, we just didn't even touch the surface of leprechauns all of a sudden. Yeah. But it's just unfortunate we haven't even played a commercial the entire show.
Dude, we didn't even talk about crop circles.
There's so much.
That was like the reason that we were having him on. I don't think we asked one question.
There's so much I wanted to get into, and I just thank him for. He's still sitting here. Hang on, let me see. All right, Chuck, I'm sorry. I got to bring it back on real quick. We didn't even touch on crop circles because I was really interested in that too. Can you explain that real quick? Well, with crop circles, it was interesting. I did an investigation called the Roswell Rock Circle. You can look that up. And it was a guy that found this rock, and it had a crop circle from the Lytton I forgot what year it was, 96 or 97, Lytton crop circle. And that was coming out of a rock, three-dimensional, coming out of a rock. And he found out in the middle of the field. And what's cool about that rock, it was polarized. One side was more positive than the other. You take a magnet and you can spin the rock. It was way cool. Only one of its kind. And we tried a year to debunk it. And now you can buy them. But, the year we tried to debunk it. But I actually talked to the crop circle enthusiasts
they happened to be lecturing in Denver that went into that particular crop circle at the time. And they said out of all the crop circles they've ever been in, that was the only one where there was so much energy that they actually turned on each other. And they were agitated with each other, and they were fighting. And it wasn't, and they realized what was going on. They left the crop circle. About a half hour later, they were fine again. So it affected them physically. And that's the only one out of all the 90-some crop circles they've been into. Now, some of the crop circles, man-made, Doug and Bob or whoever those guys were make, but you couldn't do that. You know, they were taking a rope and 2x4s and just pushing down. A real crop circle, the crops, right where they bend, it's a little round. It's kind of like a nodule, right? And if you leave them alone, it'll keep growing. So who's ever doing it, when they bend, they're not actually destroying the crop. They're doing whatever design they want to do, and then the crop survives and keeps growing. So they're not destroying. But you know, the ones that are mashed and broken, you know, that's humans doing that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that I brought you back on. I didn't mean to waste your time or anything, but I just had to ask that question. We're going to have you back on again at some point. UFOnut.com. Chuck, I really appreciate it again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we think it was some type of form of an alphabet. We were looking at alphabets, and we've had crop circles out here in the U.S. Not a lot of them are talked about, you know, because people don't want, you know, other people tromping on their fields and stuff,
right?
Like, you know, in the UK. But you know, at one point we thought it was a crops. There was an alphabet, or them trying to teach us, or maybe they were communicating. You know, it's hard to say, but you know, at least we were able to determine what was real and what wasn't. Like I said, with the real ones, you would pick up an EMF. So, and that's the case with a lot of the UFOs. That if something actually landed, you will pick up residual electromagnetic fields from whatever landed there, and you could guarantee, yes, something landed here. So grab yourself an EMF meter.
You are certainly not alone, and I believe that, and I even more believe it now. So thank you again.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And like I said, you guys have any questions, just email me, okay?
Will do. Thank you,
sounds
sir.
good, Chuck.
UFOnut.com. I'm sorry, Chris. I had to bring him back.
Just
ask about that. But I got to get back on eventually to ask him more. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Come back. We'll talk about the big announcement we made earlier, and then we'll wrap the show up. All right?
Sounds good.
All right, hang on.
What separates Triv's restaurant in Strongsville from everybody else? Some restaurants you go to eat the same thing over and over and over. But then there are restaurants like Triv's, where you want to go there every single time and eat something different until you have eaten every single item on the menu. Why? Because the food's delicious, and it has been for almost a quarter of a century. Triv's has amazing food, outstanding service, and an opportunity for you to have private dining, special events, and intimate occasions. You can enjoy a memorable fine dining experience in your own dedicated, intimate space. Visit Triv's in the heart of Strongsville. Call now for reservations, 440-238-8830. Triv's in Strongsville. Joe Burdick custom flags are amazing. Each flag is handcrafted to reflect the imperfect perfection, making each piece of patriotic wall art unique. This is a local small business, veteran-owned and proud. Joe Burdick creates symbolic artwork that is built to last. Display your spirit, pride, and patriotism by calling 440-305-2065 and let Joe's flag serve you. 440-305-2065. Joe Burdick Flags. Let me introduce you to Charlie's Auto Repair. Any car, any truck, any problem, Charlie's does it right. You know how it is. The check your engine light comes on, you put air in the tires, and the light is still on. 216-470-0170. That's Charlie's Auto Repair, 13728 Madison in Lakewood. Charlie can do it all, from small engine repair to fleet maintenance and system diagnostics. 216-470-0170. Charlie's Auto Repair. Let Charlie make your car great once again.
And welcome back. I'd like to welcome some new people actually listening to the show tonight, so that's good. Appreciate that.
Hello, people.
Things are changing, so
Yes.
that's what's going on. We talked about it earlier today. Another big thing that's happening. We are going to be helping out the men and women in blue once again.
That's right.
I talked to Billy Morris, and we this morning I talked to Joe Burdick, the guy who just heard his commercial, makes the beautiful American flags. I think we'll have Joe on next Monday, talk to him about everything that's going on. But June 21st will be the first police event that we do for the 3rd District, Cleveland Police. Smoke and Rock and Roll, Billy Morris's food truck, going to be feeding our fine men and women in blue. Joe will have a flag to present. You are welcome to join us, everybody. You can come out June 21st. I believe that's a Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll have times and everything set up, but hopefully it's the first of many, but we'll see. We got to get the ball rolling, and we'll go from there. But I'm excited about it. I'm excited about taking care of our police.
Absolutely.
As we said earlier, I think it's a very important thing that we do. And somebody asked me earlier, well, are you getting paid for it? Well, no, why would I get paid for doing something charitable? I mean, this is to say thank you.
Yeah.
One thing that I've started doing in my life, and I'm not proud of it. But I feel the need to do it. Is when I see an officer, or the other night, I was picking up some food somewhere, and I saw a gentleman who had an older gentleman. He had a POW MIA hat on.
Sure.
And I feel the need to say thank you.
Sure.
I feel to see, as to you, Chris, a military man. And I thank you for your service as well.
Yeah, it's always appreciated. I could tell you, as somebody that, as a vet, it's definitely always appreciated. And it's, I mean, we've all seen Rambo. We've all seen what happens when you don't appreciate them. They all go crazy, and we're all trained to be crazy. So it's good to just it's well received. I'll put it that way. It definitely reminds you that maybe your service wasn't in vain. When sometimes you do like everybody does in their life. They look back and they're like, oh, why did I give 5 years to that? Or why did I do that for so many years? And like for me, I did 5 years in the military, and it's nice to know that people actually appreciate the fact that I did it, and that they didn't have to or whatever.
Yeah. I've been pulled over my life, and it always sucks. And then I hate it, and I'm mad. And what the hell doesn't that cop have anything better to do than pull me over?
Right.
But there is a reason behind it. There's a reason why they do what they do. And I found it. I find the need now to say thank you to our men and women who serve, our men, whether it's in the armed forces or a fireman, definitely a police officer, because I appreciate what they do.
Anybody, nurses, doctors, nurses, hell yes.
I supposedly get a new leg tomorrow.
Nice.
I'm going to take a picture of it because it's supposed to have like a cool design on it, so I'm excited about it. I'll put it on my Facebook page, and I was sitting there thinking the people that I've had to see and help me through this entire process and continue to help me through this entire process, because it's never ending.
Sure.
But I thought about the fact that I went to therapy for so many months, and this lovely therapist that I had at Metro was just great to me. And I was like, why didn't I give her like the biggest hug ever and thank you and flowers? So I'm going to make a point to go up there sometime next week and just do that.
Sure.
Because she deserves it. And all of these people do.
It's the littlest things, man. It's like you had the nurses from the burn unit on, what, 2 months ago or so? Right. I guess that would have been.
Yeah.
And I pledged to, and I sent them a case of books, as we had talked about. They sent me the nicest email just about, can't thank you enough for blah, 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 blah. And I didn't need anything from it. I just wanted to give back to the place that gave me my life. I mean, it was not one of those moments in my life where it's like, well, here's where I can get some attention. It was just, you know what? They were doing something cool, and I felt the need to do something cool back, to say, hey, thanks for what you gave me. And I did, and they were thrilled. And as far as I know, they gave out the books, and, it helped some people. And dude, that's what it's all about. How many coins you put in the good karma basket compared to the bad karma basket, I guess.
I mean, a lot of people are sending in text. Somebody wants to know where's the 3rd district. I believe it's downtown area.
We'll find out before June 21st.
We'll find out before June 21st. We'll let you know. It is. There's nothing wrong with being a good person. That's why one of the many things I want to change about this show is that I'm not going to let people come on here and disrespect our police. I'm not going to let them disrespect our armed forces. Again, there's bad in every profession. And so, yes, time to time, we're going to have to do stories about things that suck and how cops made mistakes, and we will do those stories, and I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. But we're going to continue to thank them.
Of course.
And that is my plan anyways. Yeah, June 21st. Somebody said June 21st.
Yeah.
Smoke and rock and roll. Food truck will serve the police. I will hopefully be there. I'm going to need to get a ride up there. Unless I'm driving by then. My plan is to be driving by then.
Nice.
Joe Burdick from Burdick Custom Flag is going to be giving them a flag. And I talked to Joe today.
Okay.
And he's excited about it. He's excited about getting on board with everything once again.
Good.
We're still looking for sponsors. We have some lined up, but we're still looking for people to just help pay for the meal. And that's all we're basically asking for is got to pay for, the food has to be paid for.
Of course, sure.
We're giving it to them, but
someone got to pay for it.
Anybody that wants to donate,
sponsor
one of the events, you can email SETHWilliams32 at yahoo.com. SETHWilliams32 at yahoo.com. So I'm excited about that venture. I think that'll be cool. I also called Joe today. Get this, dude.
All right.
And we'll wrap things up. But
good.
I bought a grill
for
my house.
Okay.
Because it's always been a dream of mine to have a house, nice patio, and a grill.
Okay.
All right. I like to cook. I do.
Sure.
But I'm tired of cooking in the kitchen. It gets hot. It's stupid. And it's the same food all the time. But that's why I want a grill. I want to try some grilled salmon, which I've never had before.
It's good.
I got a freezer full of chicken thighs and breasts, that are ready to go. I went to Costco and I bought barbecue sauce, and the barbecue sauce that they have at Costco is enough to serve an army.
You think?
I mean, they're the biggest ever. And so I'm ready to grill.
Sure.
I even went out and I got myself the grilling tools.
Okay.
That look cool, like the brushes and all kind of stuff, and tongs, whatever. Stuff that I don't even know what it is, but it said it's for a grill. And so I bought it. I got an apron ready to go.
Right.
The only problem is that I don't trust myself to put a grill together. Plus, I have a fake leg.
Right.
It's not easy to get down on the ground and start screwing pieces in together and get this thing up and running. Then I don't have the tools. I've never been handyman. Even I have a house now and stuff.
Sure.
I don't have tools to do stuff. And so I'm terrified. Well, me and my daughter put together some patio furniture. It was cheap patio furniture, but it's wicker. Put it together. When we were done putting the patio furniture together, we have 4 or 5 screws left. So I don't know where they go. The furniture looks like it's put together well, but if you sit on it, you're probably screwed.
Right.
Because I don't know where these screws go. But they look nice, so they're sitting there. But the grill is a different story. If I blow up the house or blow up the neighborhood, then we got a problem. So I had to call Joe to see if he could maybe come over and put this thing together.
Put the grill together?
Because all I have right now is basically a decorative grill box sitting in my living room for like a month and a half.
Right.
So,
Well, you'll love it, dude. Once you get, I've got what I did. It's funny. You're describing what I did literally 10 years ago. Got the girl, my ex bought it for me for Father's Day one year.
yeah.
Put that stuff, but it was the whole thing. It was the in fact, it was Cleveland Browns tongs and Cleveland Browns. It was all Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Browns cover, the big expensive grill. And man, I used the hell out of that thing. I mean, I used it to death, cooked everything on it. I was out there cooking corn and, it didn't have to be meat after a while. It was anything. It was like, look, if I've got aluminum foil, I wrap it up, throw it on the grill. I didn't care what it was. Yeah, ramen, sure, why not?
I might actually enjoy vegetables if I grilled them.
Yeah, it's a different animal. It's a different taste. And fish is great on the grill.
See, I've never had anything other than like Gordon's fish sticks. So I'm assuming that like a good fish on a grill might be kind of tasty.
Dude, you get some good salmon. You wrap it up in tinfoil. You soak it in like some lemon juice or something, and then cook it on the grill for about 30 minutes or so. That's good eats there, my friend.
Wouldn't the store put it together for you? No, they dropped the box off at my front door, and then it took me like 3 years to pull it in. Yeah. My front door was open for like 3 days because it was stuck in the middle of the doorway.
You could actually call Amazon, and I think that Amazon does have a grill put together department, and they'll come out to your house and do it. But
really, I call them Angie's List.
Angie's List, yeah.
And I said, okay, let me, that's what they're supposed to do. They have like handymen that come over and fix your stuff. Well, they wanted a minimum of like $250 bucks, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, dude, this grill's going to take you like 20 minutes to put together if you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not paying $250 for that.
No, there's bound to be a handyman. There's bound to be a handyman listening that would do it for a plug on the show or whatever.
I mean, for $250, that guy better come over, put the grill together, cook on the grill for me, serve me the meal, and then come back for the next day to do the same thing all over again.
And clean the grill.
Yeah. But I'm excited to actually get the thing up and running. I'm excited to actually do it. So Joe said at some point he's going to come over and do that for me. But,
very cool.
Joe's a good man. Bird of Custom Flags. If you haven't got one of those flags, check them out on Facebook and get one of the flags because they're absolutely amazing. But that's not why I'm talking about them. Talk about all of our sponsors. Charlie Kalani is going to come on and give an update. If you listened last week, he had some problem with the city of Lakewood. He's going to have an update for us, I think, next week, Chris. So
okay, very good.
Going to be cool. And then on Wednesday, in just a couple of days, Charles Guile, a good friend of mine, good friend of the Triv Show, did a lot of stuff for Coach for Kids. He's a one-man band. Seriously, like literally, he is a one-man band. Charles Guile and his Ghost Band, and they travel all throughout the city playing different bars, and he had some heart issues, had a quintuple bypass, and so he is going to be on the show on Wednesday to tell us how his recovery is going. I know that's got to be that's a major one.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it?
So he'll tell us everything that happened to him and what's going on. We'll have some more stuff on Wednesday as well. Tony Masaccio will be on. I think he's going to be at another wing place.
Right.
Not in Little Italy this time. So
right.
He's going to be chowing down on some wings and some burgers. So we'll talk to Tony.
Right.
And, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, I am moving forward. I don't want any more arguing, no more yelling.
Sure.
We can have different opinions on stuff, but I'm done with the belittling. I'm done with everything that is negative. I'm going to be positive. I want the show to be positive. I want it to be fun, and I want it to be successful for myself, the people that sponsor it, and for everybody listening, because
right on.
That's the goal here.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to change the world. I'm just trying to enjoy it.
Right.
And want to have some fun while I got the chance. So
sure. No
thank
question.
you for coming on tonight. I'll talk to you Wednesday.
Sounds good.
Natalie says, maybe your wife can put it together. Shit. All right. Oh, real quick, before we get out of here. So yesterday, I was talking to my wife. We had to go to somebody's house for something.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, this person has an unusual name, but this person is an aquatic specialist at at Petco, aquatic specialist at Petco.
Sure.
And my wife looks at me dead straight face, and she wasn't joking.
Right.
And she goes, "Oh, is that the guy that teaches the dogs how to swim?"
What?
I said, "No, honey, it's the person that deals with the fish
Yeah.
at the pet store." And she really thought that it was a person at the pet store that could teach dogs how to swim. I tried to explain that no, they don't have little floaties for the dog to put on, or one of the big spaghetti noodles for the dog to handle to learn how to swim. Right. This is a person that deals with fish.
Right.
So if you think that woman, God love her, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me and takes care of me like you can't believe, is going to put together a propane grill that I'm going to cook on, you got another thing coming.
Nice. Dude, real quick before we go, let me tell you a story real quick that's related to this show. So, as you're aware, Tony was out at Geraci's a month ago, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yes.
And I decided I wanted to go to Geraci's from seeing the show.
Yeah.
So I go on last week to Geraci. I looked it up. There's 4 locations listed on the thing. So I went to the one closest to me, which was out in Mayfield. And I was all set to eat. And I mean, the food looked so good on the show and everything that I couldn't wait to get there, right? I get to the Geraci's in Mayfield. It's maybe the size of this room if you cut it in half.
Right.
And it has like 2 booths. Both of them are full. You know, now, and I didn't end up eating at Geraci's as much as I wanted to, and as much as the show sold me on it. I ended up eating at an Indian restaurant that was in the same plaza because there was nowhere for me to sit to actually eat at this Geraci's. It was crazy.
But, well, we're gonna have Geraci's at the big one at some point.
Yeah, well, this one certainly ain't the big one. This one is the size of a closet, but looked like a nice place. I just didn't eat there, so I'm not bashing it. It just was funny. I was so set to have that big experience like Tony showed us.
Yeah.
And instead it was like a 2-booth pizza shop.
Yeah, I've been to one of those, and I am actually bigger than the restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
Walk in.
Too funny.
But thank you again, Chris. I do appreciate it.
Of course, man.
And God willing, I'll talk to you Wednesday, and we'll have some fun.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And God willing, talk to you later.
See ya.
Yeah.